kako, aloha. Aye, my Keli'i, very good. Everyone, thank you so much for inviting me to come today. I'm tremendously honored to at the Conservative Forum and on the beautiful Big Island. I also want to say aloha to Ed Gutling for all of your organizational efforts, and Walter Moy for leading this organization, and as well to all of you who are members, and I think there may be some visitors as well, distinguished visitors, and I feel so honored. I feel as though I am in the midst of kupuna, each and every one of you, and I don't merely mean gray hair, I mean the wisdom and the aloha in your heart. And so I'm a little bit humbled now because I should not be the one teaching. I want you to know that I want to be the one learning, but they told me I had to come up here and talk, so I better be obedient. But, you know, by banding together and making sure that you're well informed and taking a part in making Hawaii a better place, all of you are doing something great. And you may not agree with each other, but that's the beauty of Hawaii. We may not always agree, but so long as we can come together, ho'oponopono, work out our differences, we can proceed with the aloha spirit. And my heart resonates with the vision of Conservative Forum, which isn't to be left or right, to be Republican or Democrat or Libertarian or Green Party or anything else like that. It is to restore, as your website says, the sovereignty of the individual, that each man and woman can determine who she is, who he is. Well, you've welcomed me with great hospitality, and I'm honored by that greatly. And so, would you indulge me a moment? You've welcomed me greatly. I'd like to welcome all of you who have come as esteemed guests, as members of this society, in a way that we do here in Hawaii. I was taught by my kupuna, my mentor, my kumuhula, Winona Beamer, the mother of Keola and Kapono. And during the 1970s cultural renaissance of the Hawaiian people, I had the wonderful privilege of serving as her chanter in her hula halau. And Auntie Nona had a very, very sacred, special way of greeting people. She told me to always mind my manners and always to greet and to say aloha using the oli aloha. You know the oli aloha, the one that has been guarded by the Beamer family. And I would be honored if you'd allowed me. Because the oli aloha says, I open my arms, I open my heart to you. And I must confess to you that in this room, we don't all know each other, but we must reach out. If you will allow me to reach back to a way my ancestors have greeted people. Ali ane ho'i o tahiti mai ahiti mai no oto ahiti puno me te aloha 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 aloha. You know the significance of these sacred words was taught to me by Auntie Nona. When she translated it, our Kumu language, Zilla Young always said, Auntie, that's not so precise. But in her heart, I can remember the gentle lilt when she spoke of kahiki mai, tahiti mai, which means far away. Not just the nation, but she said the words of this chant in the end meant, it matters not from where you come, whether near or far. For we have all come here from a far place, and we are gathered together. You know, for Auntie Nona, that was the definition of what it meant to be Hawaiian. She had felt that no matter who you are, no matter from where you come, whether you had come last week, whether you had come last year, 100 years ago, 500 years ago, we have all come from somewhere else. And what unites us is we choose to be here together we choose to live together. She taught me that the basis of our aloha is that we are united. We are inclusive and not exclusive. You know, the last time I saw my Auntie Nona alive was right here on this island. My wife and I were visiting her when she was living alone in her little house near Kamuela. And when I came in and sat down and we shared with one another, kuka kuka, and we had a wonderful meal together, she stood up, and I remember vividly, she walked across the room, a little bit frail, and picked up a wooden guitar, an old, rickety kind of wooden guitar, and she put it into my hands, and she asked me to sing for her with the guitar a version of the Oli Aloha, which I just chanted, that she had before asked me to render in a modern song style. She loved to hear that and wanted me to sing it. But what amazed me was the story she told me about the guitar. She said it was made by Keola, her son, and that it wasn't Keola's guitar. It belonged to a young man who came and lived with her for several years, and she adopted him as a son. This young man was the youngest son in the family von Trapp from Austria, on whom the song The Sound of Music is based. And it represented to her the coming together of East and West. And she saw Hawaii and being Hawaiian as that. And that's probably the greatest thing that she has ever given me. Always uniting, never dividing. Aloha ke kahi ke kahi, let us aloha one another. And again, I do want to say this. I'm not going to be unrealistic. I'm not going to pretend that every one of you in this room will agree with me today. And I'm a little bit scared too. Because I won't hit the mark with all of you. I'm not that akamai, a Japanese word for smart. But what I can tell you is this. Whether we agree or disagree, we can aloha one another. My remarks today are entitled, E hana ka ko, let's work together. The advancement of Native Hawaiians and all people of Hawaii. And that is really what is on my heart. Whether we are Hawaiian by blood and proud of that, indeed, or whether we are Hawaiian at heart, we are people together in the middle of the Pacific, in the most isolated island archipelago on the planet. And there can be no true advancement of any one people unless there is the advancement of all people. And there can be no true advancement of any of us unless there is aloha. Because aloha is a love that practices uniquely many values. It ties everything of Hawaii together, such as ho'okipa, the value of hospitality or completely giving, even to strangers. Or ohana, the value of family, even when you reach out beyond your blood family, and hanai, any child, anyone who is there in need. That is very Hawaiian. Or lo kahi, the value of teamwork. No matter what we're doing, we're going to do it together. Or ka ko, the value of togetherness, preserving the unity of all. Or ha'aha'a, the value of humility. One I had to learn the hard way. Never considering oneself, or one's race, or one's club, or one's family better than anyone else. Or ho'ohanohano, the value of showing honor and respect to others. And I want you to know how much I hold all of you in high esteem for coming here today and honoring me by listening. Thus at Grassroot Institute of Hawaii, we promote E hana ka ko, let's work together, combining the core of Hawaiian values. And we're therefore committed to uniting all of Hawaii's people to work for a better economy, a better government, a better society. Now, you may be surprised that as the head of a public policy think tank, I'm talking so much about aloha, because I'm supposed to deal with hard economic and governmental reality. I'm supposed to produce research reports. I'm supposed to be dealing with the legislature and bringing together lawyers and PhDs and researchers from across the world. But the reason I go to aloha is because the decline of aloha is the greatest threat facing the advancement of all people, whether Native Hawaiian or not. The decline of aloha, wouldn't you agree, is the greatest threat that we face? And the greatest threat to aloha today, and forgive me if you may not agree, but kindly hear me out and we can talk. I feel that one of the great threats to aloha today is the effort to divide society upon racial lines, and also to relegate or subjugate Native Hawaiian people to the status of merely tribe members under a tribal government. That threat began as an attempt to pass through Congress of the United States what has come to be known as the Akaka Bill. But before commenting upon this, I do want to say something from the bottom of my heart. To clarify one thing, the man who introduced the Akaka Bill, our beloved Honorable Senator Daniel Inouye, is a great man, and I know personally that he did so out of a heart of aloha for the advancement of the Hawaiian people. There's no question in my mind. But therefore, my comments are not about him. My comments are about a part, a little piece that happens in government legislation, a part of the Akaka Bill that has taken on almost a life of its own. And it's the proposal that Hawaiians should be considered a single tribe and governed by their tribal leaders, and the United States relate to the tribal leaders rather than to each of the Hawaiians as individuals. This is often what is called Hawaiian sovereignty, but it is not truly the sovereignty of the Hawaiian people. It is the sovereignty of a narrow group of government leaders who say they are the leaders of the Hawaiian people. The Akaka Bill has been such an affront to the Constitution of the United States that for 17 years it has failed to pass in every session of Congress. So as a desperate attempt to make the bill more attractive to congressional delegations from across the country, proponents of the Akaka Bill in 2011 took out a major portion from the Akaka Bill, the part that was most objectionable to our Congress, and that is the establishment of the Hawaiians as a tribe under tribal leaders, so that the government of America, the United States, would deal with the tribal leaders rather than with the people directly. The bill still didn't pass Congress, so the part that got removed was sent from Congress to the state legislature. And in the 2011-2012 session of the legislature, it was passed and the governor signed it into law as Act 195, establishing the Native Hawaiian Roll Commission. And once again, many of the people involved in the Roll Commission love the Hawaiian people, and this is not about them. I'm talking about an aspect of this law that we look at as being something harmful. The purpose of the Native Hawaiian Roll Commission, administered by the Office of Hawaiian Affairs, OHA, which calls it Kanai'i Olovalu, is to register a membership of a separate sovereign Hawaiian nation, but we need to listen to the details. Act 195 establishes a 5-member commission. This commission is tasked with a 1-year registration project, and it could extend by their own choice indefinitely if they choose. And in this enrollment, individuals are recruited who meet at least 2 criteria. The first criteria is that they possess Native Hawaiian blood as descendants of Hawaiians from before the time of Captain Cook. That's the first rule. The second criteria is that the individuals meet a litmus test of being, quote, culturally connected to the Native Hawaiian movement. But the law doesn't say what that means. It lets the 5 commissioners determine what that means according to their own choice. So while on the surface, advocates of Act 195 claim that it exists for the advancement of the Native Hawaiian people, the very essence of the law can never advance Hawaiians, because it violates the fundamental value of what being Hawaiian is all about, the spirit of aloha and the inclusion of all people who come to this place. In fact, the criteria of Act 195 that excludes people makes it very un-Hawaiian. The oldest of cultural records that we have of Hawaiian thought, Hawaiian mana'o, Hawaiian philosophy, demonstrate that Hawaiians in the ancient times did not define themselves by blood. The Kumulipo chant of creation speaks of all humanity as rising from the Aina, the earth. In other words, all human beings are Keli'i Akina, children of the land, according to our most ancient genealogical chant, Ke Kumulipo. You know, this was well understood by the monarchs from the first King Kamehameha, Kamehameha Nui, to Queen Liliuokalani. King Kamehameha, after uniting all of the Hawaiian chain, appointed a most trusted friend to be the governor of this, the big island, Kamokunui, in his place, someone he could trust absolutely. The man's name was Keoni Olohana. He served with Kamehameha, having fierce loyalty to his king, and he was rewarded with the rank of Ali'i. His descendants are royalty, and with them he is today buried in Mauna Ala, the royal mausoleum in Nu'uanu, not far from where I live, as a royal Ali'i. The fact that Keoni Olohana did not have an ounce of native Hawaiian blood made no difference to King Kamehameha I. In fact, both of Keoni Olohana's parents were British citizens. What made the difference to Kamehameha is that this was a man who believed in aloha and the values of the Hawaiian people and could be trusted. And thus he saw him as a Hawaiian. If Keoni Olohana, whose original name was John Young, were alive today, even despite King Kamehameha's endorsement of him, he would be stripped of his citizenship by the native Hawaiian roll established by Act 195, because he does not meet that criterion that they have set up. I don't say this to criticize them, I say this to point out that this instrument of government is not accomplishing what we intended to accomplish. It doesn't advance the Hawaiian people because it doesn't build itself upon aloha. Now, Kamehameha I's practice was not the exception to the rule, but the essence of what Hawaii stood for. During the reign of Kamehameha III, the Hawaiian Constitution of 1840 was established. Now, this remarkable document brought together in one single instrument the essence of two separate documents on which it is based, the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution of the United States. The Declaration of Independence furnishes the basic philosophy and purpose for the United States. The Constitution establishes the mechanics of the checks and balances, the structure of government. These are two separate documents. Let me quote to you the words you know on your heart from the Declaration of Independence. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men, meaning all human beings, are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. It is one of the most noble statements of all history. Then the Constitution, the other document, goes on and establishes a government in which there are checks and balances, and the Bill of Rights ensuring enumerated rights for all citizens. Now, while our founding fathers always considered that the Constitution was a document informed by the philosophy of the earlier Declaration of Independence, as time went on in our country, people began to be very literal and interpret the Constitution without keeping in mind the Declaration of Independence. So some of the most obvious things, such as the fact that under the law all men and women are created equal, didn't get practiced in the United States. And we see from a very sad history, the greatest tragedy to occur until the Constitution was finally modified with the 14th Amendment was the horrific practice of dehumanization and enslavement of an entire race, the blacks in America. And we have not fully recovered that sorry episode in American history. But in contrast, the 1840 Constitution of the Kingdom of Hawaii, prior to the United States Civil War, and 28 years before the 14th Amendment, demonstrated a stroke of genius that sets it in a class apart, something of which all Hawaiians native and Hawaiians by blood, should be proud of our heritage. It included the aloha spirit, by establishing that there shall be no racial divisions, rather than separate in a document that talked about philosophy and a document that talked about government. The 1840 Constitution combined both into a single document, a stroke of genius in the evolution of democracy in the world. And I read to you now the opening of the 1840 Constitution of the Kingdom of Hawaii. God hath made of one blood. God hath made of one blood all nations of men to dwell on the earth. That was a remarkable statement. And remember, I tell you, this is 28 years before the United States declared that slavery should be abolished and that blacks and whites and all people are equal. What a thing to be proud of in Hawaii. What a thing not to let go of. The claim that God had made of one blood all nations of men to dwell on the earth in unity and blessedness. It goes on. God has also bestowed certain rights. So it brings right into that statement the Bill of Rights. Alike on all men and all chiefs and all people and all lands. And those of you who knew the case system under the kapu system, where the ali'i was at top and the maka'inana are at the bottom, understand that this statement in the 1840 Constitution said that all men and women are equal, whether they are of one blood or another blood, they are of one blood, and whether they are of one social caste or another, they are all equal. What a genius thing. What a truly Hawaiian thing. Because of this remarkable statement that blood does not define who we are as a people, nor does blood divide who we are, Hawaiian society continued in the 19th century to embrace men and women of all ethnic backgrounds. At the time of the 1893 loss of the Hawaiian kingdom by Queen Liliuokalani, who had extended Hawaiian citizenship to people regardless of race, Hawaii boasted one of the most diverse multi-ethnic citizenry anywhere. Thus, the idea of a separate race-based nation is a very un-Hawaiian idea. It can never lead to the advancement or empowerment of Native Hawaiians because it separates us from the fundamental value of our culture, the practice of the spirit of aloha, the recognition that all human beings are of one blood. Now, please consider a second reason that the Act 195 Native Hawaiian Royal Commission Act, Kana'i Olowalu, for a movement for a race-based Hawaiian nation, really works against the advancement of Hawaiians. That's because when we look at what's written in that law, it's based upon the tribalism laws that set apart Native American Indians so that they would go to the worst parts of the land and they would be not treated as American citizens, but that they would be treated as tribal members under their tribal government. Sad to say, that was the language used by the technicians, not by the dear Daniel Akaka, but by those who wrote the legislation under him to craft the Akaka Bill, and that is what is now in Act 195. In fact, a fundamental purpose of Act 195 is to establish a new political order. To see this for yourself, simply go to the websites of the Office of Hawaiian Affairs or the Native Hawaiian Roll Commission and read the registration form to sign up for the Native Hawaiian Roll. I mentioned earlier, Act 195 authorizes the Native Hawaiian Roll Commission to set up the litmus test or the criterion to decide who is and is not allowed to be considered a Hawaiian in this role. The application form states what that criterion is. Let me read it to you word for word. I affirm. You have to swear this oath. You have to believe this to sign up. You have to sign your name. I affirm the unrelinquished sovereignty of the Native Hawaiian people and my intent to participate in the process of self-governance. Now, the first part of this declaration stands in contrast to the oath sworn by new immigrant citizens of the United States at every citizenship ceremony, in which they must renounce allegiance to any sovereign nation other than that of the one they have come to love, the United States. And that's the basis on which they enter into this commonality in which we all can say with pride we are United States citizens. and that we affirm with each other the laws of this land, the Constitution of the United States, and impart to each other the rights. The second part of this declaration, a pledge to participate in the process of self-governance, sounds nice, but it doesn't refer to personal self-governance or autonomy of the self. It refers to the political sovereignty of an entity other than the United States of America. Many Hawaiians have fought for our nation and died, such as my own father, who is buried at the Veterans Cemetery. We know what it is to work hard in this nation. We know what it is to defend the nation. We are some of the most patriotic of Americans. And this act calls for the recognition of a separate sovereignty from the United States. In essence, what Hawaiians who sign up for the Native Hawaiian role, Kana'i Olovalu, are doing, and many of them I know do not necessarily know this, they do it in goodwill, is that they allow a layer of tribal government leadership to come between them and the Bill of Rights. This is exactly what Native American Indians have done, thinking that they were affirming their culture, affirming their self-determinism, but what the law really did was establish leaders above them, a layer of government. Far from empowering individuals to take responsibility for their lives and exercise their freedoms, this process is increasing the level of government control. At the very least, it's a requirement that participants affirm a narrow political agenda for the empowerment of leaders who are seeking exemption from the system of checks and balances that keeps our country safe. Now, a microcosm of what the effects of this government control look like can be seen right now in two departments that have been assigned the duty of administering the resources and the affairs of the Hawaiian people: the Department of Hawaiian Homelands and the Office of Hawaiian Affairs. On one side of the equation, the Department of Hawaiian Homelands ensures that large numbers of Hawaiians fail to acquire and build wealth during their lifetimes. I know this. My father stood in line, and then when he got sick, I continued to. And I saw how debilitating it was not to get Hawaiian homelands. And then he got his lottery number pulled, and we went through the process, and he died during that process, a broken-hearted man. The last thing he said to me with a clear mind was, make sure when you get the house you buy insurance for it. I know what it is to go through that. It did not make him wealthy, and he lost equity in the process. All people in Hawaii learn sooner or later that a key basis of personal wealth and liberty is the private ownership of property. Our founding fathers said that that was a right of all people, and specifically the ownership of fee simple land, both the house and the land, and the ability to do with it what you will as a responsible individual, not to have to sell it back to the government or obey its rules. This is what Kamehameha III believed when he instituted the Great Mahele, the land division, which had the goal, even though it failed to accomplish it, of imparting 1/3 of the lands of Hawaii to the common person. And the reason he did this was not charity. The reason he did this is that when he looked at the United States of America, he saw that it was a great land in which individuals were able to have private ownership of property, and on that property defend it even from the government. And he said that will make our nation strong. The king wanted the people to build wealth as individuals. Yet in the Hawaiian homeland system today, administered by the Department of Hawaiian Homelands, individuals build or purchase homes on land which they can never acquire, in which they can never gain equity or stake, because they do not own it, they merely lease it. It always will belong to the government. Even if they build houses and invest money on it, the land belongs to the government. Thus, they can never sell it on the open market, and should the Hawaiian blood quantum of their heart heirs fall below the specified minimum due to the free right to marry outside of the race, they must forfeit the land altogether. And it's a tragedy to think of how many Hawaiians have been convinced that this is the American dream. And I want to say this as gently as I can. Last month I had lunch with a Native Hawaiian former legislator. And he's a revered man. He's a man of great aloha. And I told him about this, and I said, can't we do something to empower Native Hawaiians who live on homestead land, at least to earn and buy their fee so they can have a basis for wealth? And this is what he said to me. He said it with aloha, but I want you to understand the part of it that may need to be improved. He said, Keli'i, our people are not smart. If we let them have the land, they will lose it. And I thought, yes, there's aloha. He wants to be a father, a parent. But you, all of you who raise your children, know that you cannot raise them to be dependent on you taking care of them paternalistically. And sadly, that view of our people is one that does not show respect. To show respect is to say that our people are capable of running their own lives, making their own choices, and that they should be given that right to win or to lose, but it is their right. Their right established by the Constitution of 1840 of the Hawaiian Kingdom, their right established by the Bill of Rights of the United States. It is their right to their individual freedom, to have life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That's what the pursuit of happiness is about, the freedom to choose how you will live your life. The other side of the equation, beyond the Department of Hawaiian Homelands, answers the question, well, if they cannot build wealth, how can they survive? And the other side is the most extensive welfare and social service system in Hawaii, established by the Office of Hawaiian Affairs. Office of Hawaiian Affairs does many good things, but when we add them all up and see them in the system, Department of Hawaiian Homelands leasing keeps our people poor. OHA keeps us dependent by filling our bellies. And this is an endless cycle. It may not be anyone's intention that it becomes so, but when you can have your cheese when you are pregnant and get scholarships for your children when they go off to college, you don't need to build wealth. But when you're on your own, you have to be a rugged individual. You have to make money. You have to have land that becomes a greater wealth base. And this cycle of dependence does not empower. This cycle of dependence disempowers. Now, of course, I recognize that this system I described doesn't apply to all Native Hawaiians. But I'm offering it only as an example of what happens when government controls. Because the Department of Hawaiian Homelands is government. The Office of Hawaiian Affairs is government. And when we look to government, what we should be doing ourselves, it empowers nobody. And that's a fundamental truth we have to teach. Personal advancement and economic empowerment of individuals is not the aim of government. Government structures alternately seek power and the perpetuation of their own power. Any power government has, even to do good, comes by taking it from the people. And the more powerful government becomes, whether it is the government of the federal government of the United States or the Native Hawaiian government of OHA or Department of Hawaiian Homelands, whatever government establishes, takes its power from the people. And the more powerful a Native Hawaiian government administration is, the less powerful individual Native Hawaiians can be as individuals. Now, one may object and say that government being created by the Native Hawaiian Royal Commission will be generous, will be wise, will be kind, will be selfless, and look out for the interests of the ordinary Native Hawaiian. Well, there's an easy way to test whether that's true. The Native Hawaiian Royal Commission is being administered by the Office of Hawaiian Affairs. And the trustees of the Office of Hawaiian Affairs have publicly stated that their purpose is the establishment of a Native Hawaiian sovereign entity, what we have in Act 195. They've spent millions of untold millions of dollars pursuing the Akaka bill on the federal level. How well will OHA watch out for the interests of individual Native Hawaiians is indicated by how well OHA has held the Department of Hawaiian Homelands accountable, or even been an advocate, or even been a watchdog of what's going on. In 3 groundbreaking articles during the month of May 2013, this wasn't news, but it became public. The Honolulu Star-Advertiser exposed the Department of Hawaiian Homelands for tremendous levels of corruption, graft, and diversion of resources from Hawaiians who are not getting those resources, and many times are being given to people totally unqualified simply because they have relationships with power brokers in the Department of Hawaiian Homelands. I won't go into details because it's all written up, and I encourage you to read it in last month's 3 parts of the Honolulu Star-Advertiser, along with the state auditor's report. And you will see almost daily now reports coming out as to what is really going on, things many of us have known. While it's unconscionable that OHA, the very organization established for the advancement of Native Hawaiian people, has allowed the Department of Hawaiian Homeland scandal to take place for decades without saying anything, without advocating or intervening, what's more frightening is that very same OHA is in charge of the Native Hawaiian role. That's the frightening thing. And during the same legislative session in which the Native Hawaiian Role, Act 195, was passed by our legislature, OHA was also awarded 30 acres of prime waterfront land in Keli'i, making it one of the biggest business brokers in the center of Honolulu. Every major development issue in Honolulu has to go through them and their ability to object. This is right down next to downtown Honolulu. Now, they've since leveraged part of the wealth of this property into business deals for the acquisition of many other land parcels on multiple islands. The Keli'i transaction is now regarded as a precedent for the future transfer from the state of Hawaii to OHA of what is known as the ceded lands, 1.8 million, close to 2 million acres, and it will go to that administration. The establishment of the Native Hawaiian role, if successful in gaining federal recognition, could be the key to amassing unparalleled financial and real estate resources in the Office of Hawaiian Affairs, as they exist almost exempt from state law. Now, the fundamental question for all citizens of Hawaii, including Native Hawaiians, should be at this: who holds the OHA trustees accountable? Since its establishment by the State Constitutional Convention in 1978, OHA has enjoyed a somewhat quasi-autonomous status. While the governor can appoint a trustee of his choice to fill an unexpected vacancy on the OHA board, the operations of OHA are not directly accountable to the governor nor to the legislature. So who holds OHA accountable? We'll return to that question before I close today. But let me add one more dimension to the problem of creating another layer of government over Hawaiians. If the purpose of administering the Native Hawaiian role is to attract large numbers of Hawaiians so that they may be served as beneficiaries, then we may ask, how sincerely and how effectively has the Royal Commission carried out its task? After nearly a year of efforts to enroll a registry of Native Hawaiians willing to constitute a separate race-based sovereign nation run by a government entity, the Office of Hawaiian Affairs and the Native Hawaiian Role Commission claim, as of March 2013, a mere 9,300 signatures. There are more Hawaiians on the Kamehameha campus than that. Their stated goal by this time was 200,000, and the global population of Native and part Native Hawaiians, according to the 2010 U.S. Census, is 527,000. Out of 527,000, 9,300 have signed up. Despite the fanciest websites, despite the most expensive offices, and a budget of somewhere between $4 and $6 million, not to mention other funds collaborated from other Hawaiian organizations, 9,300 out of 500,000 have signed up. You could have just given away $100 bills and had a bigger sign-up than that. Now, some believe that the lack of support by Hawaiians for the role is a strong indicator that the leadership of OHA and Department of Hawaiian Homelands, and the Native Hawaiian Role Commission are out of touch, and that most Hawaiians have no desire to affirm an unrelinquished sovereignty from the past, preferring their rights and status as citizens under the Constitution of the United States. But yes, and yet there may be another explanation that is true of many Native American Indian tribal organizations that are not concerned with increasing their numbers, not concerned with gaining members, and actually want to lose members because they have to care for everybody that they're responsible for and enlisted in their nation, and they have to split up the wealth to them. Tribal leaders who control the land of the tribe often have access to wealth and power, while their tribal members live in abject poverty. We see this across the nation. The failed model of the Native American Indian reservation system frequently benefits a thin layer of Native American government tribal leaders who conduct for their people a government-to-government relationship, so the government doesn't need to deal with them as individuals, but deals with their tribal leaders who get rich in the process and have great power. Their concern is not for the advancement of their people, but for the increase and the perpetuation of their own power base. And that's also one reason why they fight fiercely to keep the land together, claiming that that's the heritage, the legacy, when in reality they're keeping the land together so that they control the power base instead of giving it to individuals. Could this be why the Department of Hawaiian Homelands and the Office of Hawaiian Affairs oppose plans to help Hawaiians convert their leasehold land to fee simple property they can own and build individual wealth on? A beautiful lady, Ruby Johnson, a beautiful Hawaiian linguist who's taught us much, has dedicated much of her life to trying to persuade the government to let Hawaiians buy their fee on the land so that they can be independent landowners, not beholden to the government. And yet, why does the government fight? It's a sad fact of our American history that tribalization and the reservation system were a means of preventing Native American Indians as individuals from experiencing the full freedoms of United States citizens due them in the Bill of Rights. The example of their leaders demonstrates the adage from Lord Acton, who said, "Power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely." That's what it's really all about. The solution then for the advancement of Native Hawaiians and all people of Hawaii is to embrace the fundamental principle of individual liberty. The Declaration of Independence of the United States and the Constitution with its Bill of Rights have proven to be the greatest empowerment of individuals in the history of the planet. Communist governments across the world are falling as individuals in large numbers embrace the principles of liberty. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness mean that government must be limited and accountable. When that does not occur, individual liberties are lost and people are disempowered. The rise of a separate race-based sovereign entity in Hawaii is a problem for everyone, both Native Hawaiians, who will be disempowered under tribalism, and all people who will face their liberties encroached upon by another governmental power base in this land. So back to the question, who holds OHA accountable? I'll come back next month and tell you. Who can make the difference? Well, I want to end with this. There's extremely good news here. The answer to that question, who holds OHA accountable? Who holds the government accountable is you and me and every citizen who loves liberty. The liberty of the 1840 Hawaiian Constitution, the liberty of the Declaration of Independence, and the Constitution of the United States. And if we're going to fight each other because of who our ancestors were, we're never going to unite and fight the government. And I don't mean anarchy. I don't mean, burning down buildings. I don't mean anything like that. What I mean is the kind of fight that says, I will go to the polls and I will vote. We will raise up our children so that they will go into the political system. We will inform ourselves of the issues so that there are good candidates. And it doesn't matter what party. All that matters is that good people rise to the occasion. If the freedom-loving people of Hawaii County, on this island, in this county alone, will rise up, you have an incredible opportunity. For you on Hawaii Island, 2014 is especially promising because you will be able to vote for a Hawaii County trustee in the Office of Hawaiian Affairs, and for the first time there will be a primary. And do you know what that means? You can mobilize on this island and find someone who represents your values of liberty. And if on Oahu Island they do the same, and if those who are voting for the at-large trustees, it would be possible to influence what could be the worst attack upon the aloha spirit and to turn that around. I don't have a magic bullet. We have the lowest voter registration and turnout in the nation. And I'm sad to say that those of my own ethnic background people are at the lowest of that in the state. But we can change it. We can change it if we unite together and we work for a common solution. The role of Grassroots Institute of Hawaii in this process is to provide education to the public and to our elected leaders. It's easier to provide it to the public sometimes. We're not a political organization, nor are we affiliated with any political party or partisan group, nor do we endorse or fund any candidates. But I hope that we can serve you and inspire you to get out and find the candidates, or be a candidate, or raise your children to be the candidates, and fund those candidates. I'm not going to tell you who to vote for. I'm not going to tell you what party to support, but I want to encourage you to get out there and make a difference. Seize the opportunity. Win that OHA seat on Hawaii County. If the incumbent who's in office now is worthy, then support the incumbent. If someone else will bring freedom, then support someone else. But don't sit in the trenches. Now, with that said, there is some practical assistance I can provide, and I want to close with that. And that is, if you're going to win the battle, you're going to have to be able to tell the truth. And you're going to have to dispel 7 myths about the Office of Hawaiian Affairs. As I've traveled the island chain, I've found that most people are under need to vote for OHA trustees. Myth number 2, only Hawaiians can run to become OHA trustees. Fact, any state of Hawaii citizen, regardless of race, can run to become an OHA trustee. I hope many of you are in the room here who are going to run. Myth number 3, OHA is a Hawaiian organization. Fact, OHA is a state agency of all people, by all people, for all people, created by Hawaii's voting public to carry out the public's duty to Hawaiians and to all people. OHA differs in this respect from private Hawaiian organizations that serve a primarily exclusive Hawaiian population, such as the Kamehameha schools or some of the charitable trusts of the Ali'i. Because OHA is a public government entity, it must be of all people, by all people, for all people. Myth number 4, OHA trustees are the leaders of the Hawaiian people. Fact, there are more than 152 Native Hawaiian organizations, most of which do not look to OHA as their leaders. Hawaiians are not a single tribe represented by OHA trustees as tribal heads or ali'i. Myth number 5. OHA's legal mission is to establish a race-based sovereign Hawaiian nation. Fact, OHA's current trustees have violated their legal mandate in pursuing a sovereign nation other than the United States of America. And in such, they have violated their sworn oath as public officials sworn to uphold the Constitution of the state of Hawaii and the United States of America. They have departed also from the traditional Hawaiian understanding of including everyone as citizens of the realm, regardless of blood. Myth number 6. OHA is a marginal organization irrelevant to the mainstream of Hawaiian citizens. Fact. Over the past several years, OHA has become a major power broker with growing land holdings and revenue streams. It has established an escalating practice of aggressive legal action to assert its will in government, private sector, and cultural matters. Myth number 7. It's hard to know who to vote for to be an OHA trustee. Fact. Community groups, including neighborhood boards and colleges, sponsor election forums and interviews of OHA candidates every year. Many of them can be viewed on the internet. A quick and simple way would be to watch olelo.org or OEV TV, and then visit the websites of candidates. But even better yet, and I want to challenge you here on Hawaii County, find the men and women who have the true aloha spirit, the true intelligence, the true dedication to aloha for Native Hawaiians and for the rest of society, then you will find your candidate, and you can back that candidate. We've covered a lot of ground today, and I want to thank you for your gracious and kind attention. I feel very respected, and I hope that you understand how much I respect and honor all of you. To come full circle, what is at stake is the aloha spirit. For aloha to thrive, we must all rise to the challenge of embracing and defending the principles of liberty. Here in Hawaii, whether we are Hawaiian by blood or Hawaiian at heart, we are all boats in the same harbor. To raise the water level of one boat, we must raise the water level of all. To advance one people, we must advance all. E hana ka ko, let's work together. Aloha pumehana ma'aloha, and may God bless Hawaii and the United States of America. Mahalo. Mahalo.